Welcome, folks, to another episode of Advisor Insider. I'm Jeff Benjamin, Wealth Management Editor here at ETF.com. And in this episode, the first episode of 2025, I'm talking with Bob Dahl, Chief Executive Officer and Chief Investment Officer at Crossmark Global Investments. As many of you, I'm sure know, Bob has for a long time been doing his annual predictions. And the cool part about his predictions is he's always happy to grade himself on how he's done throughout the year and looking back. Bob, how you doing today?
Doing great. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks for being here. Let's start. Let's jump right into this because you've got 10 predictions for this year. And I want to ask you, last year, your predictions, we're not going to go down each one of them, but it looks like you graded yourself as going 7 for 10. What stands out in last year's predictions to you?
I'd say overall, to criticize ourselves, we were a little too cautious, as many were, about both the economy and the stock market. But having said that, I think that our call related to the Fed was key for last year, and that was that the Fed would cut rates fewer than the 6 times that was in the Fed Fund futures curve. We didn't believe that inflation would get back to the Fed's 2%, and I still don't think it will get there absent a recession, which limits how much the Fed can do.
Okay. All right. I'm going to point out one from last year that you and I talked a little bit about last year. Your number 10 prediction: the White House, Senate, and House will switch parties in November. Essentially, you were one of the few people predicting a Trump victory, right?
Correct. Our view was that in general, the world and the US in particular, we've been booting the incumbents out of power at a pace that we haven't seen in about 150 years. So whoever the guy is in now, we want him out and bring the new guy in. That was part of our thinking. Biden was beginning to struggle. I guess he was struggling long before he made these predictions a year ago. And we thought that might be a bit of a problem. It obviously turned out to be a fatal flaw, and they had to pick somebody else. And she just didn't have a chance to get up on her own 2 feet. And Trump knows how to campaign.
Okay. All right. Let's look ahead to 2025. We're recording this on January 10th, where one of the big factors is Trump 2.0, which I'm assuming has to be filtered through many of your predictions. But we're just going to go down the list here, sort of rapid fire format. Number 1, economic growth slows as the unemployment rate rises past 4.5%. That sounds kind of high.
Yeah, it does, particularly in light of the jobs number we got for the month of December. It showed robust job growth and actually a downtick in unemployment. But our view still is when you look at the JOLTS reports, other labor reports, ability to find a job, announcements of both less hiring and more layoffs, we think the economy is going to slow. We're not talking about a recession, just a slower growth rate. It was roughly 3% real GDP in 2024. We think it's going to be closer to 2 this year, which means fewer jobs and a little higher unemployment rate.
Okay. Number 2, inflation remains sticky, fails to reach the Fed's 2% target, and causes Fed's funds rate to fall less than expected.
Yeah. The most recent CPI we got was obviously the November report we got in December, and it is prototypical of what we've been seeing. Both the headline inflation numbers and core inflation numbers, Jeff, were up 0.3%. You multiply by 12 and you don't get 2%. And the trailing 12-month headline number, 2.7, trailing core number, 3.3. In round numbers, to simplify, inflation is running around 3%, not 2%. And that's just going to make it tough for the Fed to keep cutting those rates. So the Fed Fund futures coming into the year was we're going to get 2.5 cuts. Our view is ain't going to happen. In fact, with some of the numbers we've seen already in January, people are starting to talk about maybe the Fed by the end of the year is going to have to raise rates. Let's hope not.
Okay. Treasury 10-year yields trade primarily between 4% and 5% as credit spreads widen. Number three.
Yeah, we entered this calendar year with right in the middle of that range around the 450 level. And our view is that we're going to get a lot of back and forth. And part of that, you referred to this earlier, is the policy uncertainties. Not only the policy uncertainties, but the policy rhetoric that tends with Trump to be all over the place. So we think bonds will move up and down, and a lot of people get frustrated, but we'll stay in that 4 to 5% zone. The credit spreads widening. As you know, credit spreads, the difference between treasuries and high yield or corporate bonds, record tight. And as the economy slows, we think there'll be some widening in that. So we want high quality fixed income portfolios.
Okay, this one needs a little bit of an explanation. Number four, earnings failed to achieve consensus, 14% growth, and every sector has up earnings. What are you saying
Yeah.
there?
So the consensus is expecting earnings growth in this calendar year to be 14%. I remind listeners that long-term earnings growth in the US is about 7%. So we're going to have another year way above average. After 2 years of predicted double digits, there's a third year being predicted. We just don't see it. That's the first part of the prediction. The other is every sector has up earnings. It's nice at the beginning of the year to say, oh, all is rosy. But by the end of the year, there are going to be a sector or two or three that probably have down earnings. So long and short of it, Jeff, is earnings expectations are too rosy.
Okay. The S&P 500 has been up around 25% the past 2 years. Nobody's expecting that again this year. You're seeing volatility on the rise with the VIX average approaching 20 for only the third time in 14 years.
Yeah, volatility obviously, first of all, goes in both directions. Most people use the word volatility, they think only down.
Right.
We think we'll see some in both directions as the market, sort of like I said about the treasury bonds, bounces around with all kinds of uncertainties, and that we will have a more volatile year. Look, predicting and actuality are two different things. When you come into a new year, A, with a new president, B, with a change in party, and C, with a president who loves to do social media every day, we're going to get some volatility.
Okay. Speaking of volatility, number six, stocks experience a 10% correction as stocks fail to keep up with earnings.
Yeah, look, 10% corrections happen every 14 or 15 months. We haven't had one in 3 years. And so people are used to, quote, stocks only go up. Now, we typically get 5% declines in every calendar year. We'll see. But on the basis of the economy slowing, earnings expectations are too high. I think there's a lot of exuberance in the market. It started about 6 weeks before the election when people started to see the polls moving in Trump's direction. We got a lot of tailwind. And I think a lot of the expectations are Trump's going to fix everything in about a day and a half. And you and I both know it's not that simple. And that exuberance in expectations is another reason we think we'll get a noticeable pullback this year at some point.
Okay, nothing wrong with a pullback. This is one of my favorite topics as well. Equal-weighted portfolios beat cap-weighted portfolios. That's interesting because we've been carried along for a few years by this Magnificent Seven. Are you suggesting a little bit of spread across some of these stocks that are carrying everything along?
Yes, sir. Look, the Mag 7, they're great companies, and most of them have good prospects. They've just gotten more expensive. And I'm not saying go out and sell them, but I'm saying too many portfolios that have way too much in these stocks. I would pare back a bit and buy, quote, the average stock, where earnings expectations are moving higher. And of course, if we get a more, can I say, even democratic small d market, we will get the average stock doing better, which should create a tailwind for the average manager. Beating these indexes with these Magnificent Seven, such big weights, has been a trick for a lot of people, as you know.
Okay. Financials, energy, and consumer staples outperform healthcare, technology, and industrials. That kind of extends on the prior prediction.
Yeah, it does, Jeff. We always have a prediction that says these three will beat those three. So a couple of comments. Financials, our favorite sector, biggest beneficiary of deregulation. The stocks are cheap. Balance sheets we find in pretty good shape, particularly for this point in the economic cycle. That's because of a lot of the lending took place outside the banking system in private credit. So those balance sheets are pretty good shape. Energy had a tough year last year. We think they'll do better this year. We want a defensive group, and the staples, consumer staples, is our choice. On the underweight side, let me comment on technology. We already had a couple comments there. Look, great companies, as I said, but they're expensive stocks. The technology sector represents 12% of the capitalization in the S&P 500, but only 7% of the earnings. So good companies, good earnings, but boy, they're highly valued.
Okay. Number 9, Congress passes the Trump tax cut extension. That sounds good. Reduces regulation, but tariffs and deportation are less than expected.
You know, there's this view that Trump won in a landslide, and you and I know he didn't. Yes, he took all these swing states, and that's a feat. I don't want to take anything away from him. But the popular vote, which he won, he only won by 1.5 percentage points. So the mandate's only going to last, quote, so long. I think one of the early things the Republicans, and led by Trump, will try to do is extend the tax cuts that are expiring at the end of the year. It will not be made permanent, in my judgment. It's just too difficult a hit on the deficit and the out years. So maybe for 4 or 5 years. Reducing regulation. That one's a no-brainer. That will help businesses, no question. But there are a lot of expectations already there. The wild card are tariffs. Is he for real that he's going to put a 10% tariff on everything and 60% on China? That was the campaign promise. Our belief, our hope is that just get countries to come to the table and talk, and we won't have as onerous a legislation as the predictions were from the campaign trail.
Okay, and finally, number 10, the Department of Government Efficiency, commonly referred to as DOGE, DOGE efforts make progress, but fall woefully short of $2 trillion per year savings.
And so it's interesting. We're doing this, as you said, on January 10th. Just yesterday, January 9th, Elon Musk, one of the architects here, said, well, maybe it's not 2 trillion. Maybe it's only 1 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, look, if we get 1 trillion, you and I should stand up and salute. That will mean we have made good progress. But the numbers are just don't add up. If you look at Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, defense, and interest expense, none of which are being proposed to cut. In fact, the latter two will go up. That quote only leaves $800 billion of spending. How do you get 2 trillion out of 800? I just don't think that's going to happen. So that we're tackling this is great news. Like any company, every once in a while you have to go through and cut your costs and become more efficient. We haven't done that in the government potentially forever. So I hope they do make some progress, Jeff.
Yeah, I have, it's easy to be leery of this and cynical. Whenever I see the government create a new department to basically downsize the government, it's almost like one of those oxymorons. But
yes.
It's nothing gets fat like the government, like the federal government. But I don't know, it's different. We'll see what happens.
Yep.
That was number 10, Bob. We have essentially wrapped up our official predictions, but I got to ask you, are you a football fan?
I am. I live in Philadelphia, and so professionally football Eagles fan.
Okay.
A son-in-law who's a coach at University of Michigan. So that's our team there. That was great last year, a little tougher this year.
All right. Well, let's go. We are on January 10th, as we've said a few times. This podcast will publish or post on January 14th. So what are your thoughts on some of the highlights over the weekend that we've got coming ahead of us? Philadelphia's got a big game. Packers.
Yep, Philadelphia should beat the Packers. They're going to get their real test, assuming they win against the Packers, when they have to play the Detroit Lions. They're a great team, and haven't gone all the way in history. They actually deserve a chance, but I'll be rooting for the Eagles.
Okay. Any thoughts on the AFC?
Yeah, I think look, there are a number of good teams there. Don't discount Buffalo. Buffalo's really good. Of course, KC is most people's favorite. We'll see a KC Detroit Super Bowl. It'll be kind of fun to watch.
Okay. For our regular listeners that don't already know this, I'm a huge lifelong Detroit Lions fan. I'm originally from Michigan. And I will be hopefully giving these little snippet updates and predictions throughout all the way to the Super Bowl, whether the Lions go there or not. So stay tuned. I want to thank Bob Dahl of Crossmark. Really good, always fun talking to you. We will check in with you at the mid-year point as we always do to see where you are on your predictions. And I know you're happy to always grade yourself, and you don't pull any punches even when talking about your own predictions. It's fun talking to you, Bob. Looking forward to a great year.
Well, good luck, everybody that's listening. Buy low, sell high. Hope it works.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye now. Thanks for listening, folks, to another episode of Advisor Insider, powered by ETF.com. I'm Jeff Benjamin. I can be reached at jeff.benjamin@etf.com. Reach out to me with all your story ideas or tips, or if you want to be on the podcast. I also encourage you to go to ETF.com and check out the Advisor Center, where we've got everything you need for portfolio management, research, you name it. If there's something there you wish was there and you don't see, again, reach out. Let us know. We're here for you.